So maybe that's a step in the right direction. So we're going over to you, Kyle, and we're going to get into some fantasy football talk and other overreactions. And I know you're a big fantasy guy as well, Kyle. But the Eagles the Steelers get a preseason win against the Eagles, 31-14 on Thursday night. And, of course, you guys got the Packers coming up on the 16th, and then follow behind that with the Titans. Give us a thought, give us a peek into what you're following with your Pittsburgh Steelers.
I think more than anything, I'm not only in the Steelers, but just really looking at the helmet rule in and of itself, how it's going to be enforced.
Mm-hmm.
I think that obviously during the first game with the Ravens, where there was a helmet penalty that seemed fairly egregious when it came to them actually enforcing it correctly. Then you had Jamarco Thomas during the Colts game, where he was actually kicked out of the game because of going helmet to helmet. I think what's going to happen right now, and I think people are kind of overreacting, is that the refs are probably going to be a lot more diligent during the preseason, just to kind of train people, like, this is what we're looking for, this is what we're going to be kind of considering. And then once the games really start, it probably won't be as big of a story as we think it's going to be. Specifically for the Steelers, though, I'm very interested. Obviously, we drafted Mason Rudolph and James Washington out of Oklahoma State. So watching that pair put together for a nice little 25-yard bomb was pretty nice to see. Everyone kind of is already anointing Rudolph as the second guy behind Ben Roethlisberger and the heir apparent, essentially. And I don't know if that's necessarily the case. He was a third-round pick. He has some time to sit. He could be a Jimmy Garoppolo. He could be an Aaron Rodgers, or he could be something completely different, just a backup quarterback that never really gets anything further. But Landry Jones very much cemented himself as the backup quarterback, at least for this season and that preseason game. It was nice to see some of the younger players. Our first-round pick came out and played safety for a little bit. It was nice to kind of see him. They pulled some of their new defense out, which is looking to fill some of the holes that were left by Ryan Shazier's presence. Is still very much a hole in the middle of that defense. So they've chosen to supplement it with more dime packages and quarters packages that allow some of their safeties who are a little bit more athletic to move toward the line and try and minimize some of the needs and that Shazier would essentially have taken care of for them. So the defense, I think, it will be a really interesting story all season, because they did a huge revamp in their entire secondary over the next couple of years, switched T.J. Watt and Bud Dupree on opposite sides. So there's a lot of promise on that side of the ball, which the past couple of years has been a little bit lackluster.
We're talking.
That's the.
No, that's fine. And you know, you brought up some good point about your quarterback, because let's face it, as much as you guys like Big Ben there, I think the writing's on the wall that he doesn't have much longer left in the league, and you can tell that the Steelers are building depth in the quarterback position. So it very much might be Randolph as the heir apparent, but we'll see how that heads out. Rick, what are your thoughts for Kyle while we got him on here about the Steelers, or any other thing you might have for him?
I don't have anything for him. I was going to ask you, who the hell is Randolph?
Mason, and his name Mason Randolph? Did I say the name wrong? I'm sorry. Mason Rudolph. Okay, I'm sorry. I knew I was thinking when he said it. Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. Mason Rudolph.
No, it's funny. Hey, I was going to ask, they're going to be in need of running back, right? Since we Le'Veon Bell's last year.
Yeah.
Dong, 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 dong.
Well, so here's.
I'm just kidding.
With this season, James Conner has been the second guy, and they've really been putting him through the ringer a little bit, and now he'll be the lead guy through the preseason. I expect when Bell will come back the week starting of the season, essentially immediately following the fourth preseason game, he'll get a little bit of work, but I don't think that they'll do what they did with him last year and just throw him out to have 25 and 30 carries week 1 and 2, because he actually kind of struggled out of the gate. I think they'll ease him in, give more carries to Connor, make it more of a balanced backfield. But then the following year, I mean, Connor will probably be looked at as the lead back. But yeah, they're absolutely going to draft running back. And I don't think that anybody will be able to do all of the stuff that Bell has done and been for the team, but they can supplement it with a few other players, hopefully, that will help alleviate the hole that he will leave next season.
Rick, also I want to get with you as Rick is our executive producer, and we're kind of talk bounce back around. What are we going to title this week's game show? You said pre's and distractions. I want to make sure that we get those covered. So as we watch the games on Thursday, let's talk about one distraction that I saw, and that was the Cam Newton.
I never said distraction. I said preseason overreaction.
Overreactions. Okay. I titled it right.
If you want to bring up
okay.
distractions, that's fine.
Hey, overreactions can be a distraction, can it? But let's talk, and you can chime in here too, Kyle, as well. Cam Newton kind of got an unwelcome welcome, if you will. What are your thoughts, Rick?
I actually think you talk about the Kelvin Benjamin issue. I think Cam Newton.
I'm sorry.
Exactly right. I think he tried to talk to him face to face about it, and Kelvin Benjamin didn't want to have anything to do with it. So I guess that issue is over. But I think Cam Newton handled that exactly right.
Well, he kind of looked like he wanted to kind of walk up and be kind of a smart ass to him and kind of like, make jokes, and Benjamin didn't want any part of it.
With his hands behind his back, meaning that he wanted to talk and not really fight about it. So I think that was the right thing to do. And Kelvin Benjamin just probably, he's a younger guy, probably acts his age, not mature enough yet to have an adult conversation. So I think Cam Newton handled it right.
Okay, so do you think that it was an overreaction that became a distraction?
Yeah, I mean, it's really not fair to Cam Newton because, Kelvin Benjamin was saying if I had a better quarterback this whole time, I would have had better numbers. But you know what? Kelvin Benjamin was injured a lot of times playing for the Carolina Panthers. They made it to the Super Bowl that year while he was injured. So you can't put the entire on one person and take zero accountability for yourself. So he's done that, which is wrong, and he didn't want to talk about it like a man face to face, which is also wrong. So I think Cam Newton's totally in the right here.
Kyle, what are your thoughts?
I have to agree. I think Benjamin unnecessarily made the story a lot bigger, and Cam Newton could have very easily continued to blow it out of proportion, but he just decided not to make any big deal about it, and I think that was the right way to go about it. Obviously, Cam Newton has had a history of kind of not taking the temperature of the room that well and handling information and situations the way that you probably should as the head of your franchise. So this was a really nice thing to see him kind of maturing finally into that role and becoming more of the veteran QB that stays above the fray a little bit more than he has been.
So this is our official preview, fantasy football preview. Kyle, I don't know how long you can stay on with us, but I want to get your thoughts on some fantasy football. We played fantasy football together last year. Hopefully, if you want to play again this year, we've got a spot open on the balanced roster, so let me know if you want to play. I'll get you set up. But I learned something about Kyle. He's the nicest guy in the world, but let me just say this. If he offers you a trade, he's going to offer you a trade. And if he offers you a trade, as good as a trade as it might seem, somewhere deep hidden in that he's seeing something further down the line that ultimately benefits him. I saw Kyle benefit immensely from the trade and picking up people off of waivers. Is that kind of your strategy, Kyle? You don't really worry so much about the draft and you just kind of work the trade market?
Well, I think part of it is I love the draft part of it, but I also realize that the reality for my team is that about 50% of it from the moment it's drafted until the end of the season will probably be turned over. So as a result of that, I have very little loyalty with regard to the people that I have on my team, even if I have Steelers players. I mean, you saw me. I traded away Antonio Brown for a couple of different options or pieces that I needed within my team. So when it comes to it's really about team building as a whole, having a decent amount of depth but the other thing is I like making trades, and I try to be fair with the trades that I throw out there. I'm not trying to screw anybody over, because I don't want to create bad faith within anybody in my league. But for me, I love making trades. I love the deal side of it, the figuring out what makes sense, who you can work with. Obviously, you and I were in sales together, and that's very much how that works. So that's something that I've always enjoyed, and had a good time doing.
Absolutely, Rick-riggin. Let's kind of get into the.
I have a question for Kyle, real quick though. Question for Kyle.
Go ahead, sure.
So with that, you're saying you're totally 100% against the keeper rule.
I'm not.
Oh, he had to bring that up. He had to bring that up.
I'm not against the keeper rule. If you're in a league with a group of people and it's established and it's been a while, I absolutely am fine with keepers. I have no issue with that whatsoever. I don't play in a keeper league, but I know a lot of people that do. And that stuff, and really, my whole thing with the rules of fantasy football is, as long as everybody in your league is fine with it, then that's great. I don't love PPR leagues. Some people do, some people don't. I don't love auction drafts. I prefer snake drafts, but it just kind of depends on what people like and what the group of people that they're playing with prefer. So I think as long as everybody's having a good time, that's really all that matters.
Well, and we were talking about this with the Balance League, because it technically, because it started as a keeper league, but you can only keep 2 players. It's not like you're keeping a lot, but we have such a revolving door with the Balance League. It really does not. And Rick, you do make a valid point. I just find it funny that you found a way to work that into the conversation. But
right,
and that's fine. And that's fine, because we do have, with the Balance being who we are, what we do have people that stick around from year to year, and then we have people that leave. Like we have got some new people this year, and then we've got some people leave. And honestly, going back to the kneeling, I've had 4 or 5 people say, I'm not playing fantasy this year because I'm not following the NFL because of the kneeling. And so if that's what you want to do, that's fine. I say don't let the actions of a few assholes, excuse my French, ruin your fun, if you will. Guys, let's get into some strategy talk as we get ready for drafts. And, really, this isn't really an official mock draft by any stretch of the imagination. But I do want to kind of go through. And Kyle has to jump off. So, Kyle, we appreciate you joining us, buddy. So it's just you and I. So thanks, Kyle. You're welcome anytime, buddy.
Thanks so much, man. I appreciate it. You have a great day.
See you, Kyle.
All right, Kyle.
See ya.
Kyle, the Steelers fan, and he has a lot of fun with the fantasy football. And to be quite honest, he's very good at it. I hope to get him over on our league. He's still debating on whether or not he wants to be in another league. So let's talk a little bit about strategy before Mo jumps on here a little bit. I'll just kind of go through, I won't say mock draft, but just kind of people that you think are going to go in the first round. I think a lot of people are looking at Todd Gurley as the number 1 overall pick for the Rams. What are your thoughts?
I think that's probably spot on. And also just it goes in with what Kyle was saying about they're going to start easing Le'Veon Bell into the system. It's probably going to take a couple weeks. Maybe some of the guys in the draft aren't going to draft him as highly. I mean, people will still take Le'Veon Bell number 1. But to get those early points, if Kyle is right and he's going to be eased in and he's not really going to get the full workload and score a bunch of points for guys for these fantasy football points early on, then Todd Gurley might go number 1. And I would say the strategy is really this year. The past 2 years, it seemed like it leaned towards receiver. But a lot of these mock draft boards that you see, the top 4 of the top 5 players are all running backs. Antonio Brown's the only receiver in the top 5.
Well, yeah, and that goes to another strategy that it's a very popular strategy for draft, and that is to draft your running backs early, especially if you've got